Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I'm going to wait a couple of minutes for people to join, and then we'll get right into it. So just bear with me a second. For those of you who are watching this on the playback, I just want to wait a couple of minutes for people to tune in before I get started. So just bear with me one second. All right, so I'm going to get right into it. For those of you who don't know, I had a debate on Nylah Says program. I debated against this guy called Task Exclusives. I will include a link to that debate in the description box so that you could check it out. Now, I want to know, like, how many of you all have actually seen that debate or, listened to it here on YouTube. If you can throw up a 1 to let me know if you heard the debate, I would appreciate it. So I'll just wait for people to let me know. Just say yes or no if you heard the debate or not. I would appreciate that. And I'm going to show you a screenshot of the particular video so that you'll know exactly which video I'm talking about without clicking the link. So just bear with me one second. Just bear with me one second so I can pull up the video. I'm going to share my screen now so that you all can see it. Just so that you can see the video, and then I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick. But here's the video. You all can watch the debate. The debate is at the very beginning, so you don't have to worry about sitting through a 6-hour-long hangout. I think our debate went for the first 2 hours or so of this particular hangout, so I encourage you all to check this out if you haven't seen it. And I'm really interested in hearing from you about what you thought about the debate. What do you think about the points that I raised and the points that he raised, and just what you thought about how Nylah Says moderated the panel. So I'm really interested in hearing about that. So let me stop showing my screen. I can just X out of that. A link to that video is in the description box so that you could check it out if you haven't seen it. Shout out to Dave E. Shout out to Water Sniper. Shout out to Joy Us 3, and shout out to Doug. Yeah, I saw Doug make a couple of comments during the hangout, or actually it may have been before the hangout. I think it was before the hangout. It may have been during that particular hangout. But yeah, I want to just thank y'all for tuning in, and I just want to share my thoughts about this particular hangout. So just bear with me one second. I'll be right back. So before I get into like my reaction or my thoughts about the debate, tell me what you want. Do you want me to keep it 100 or do you want me to be diplomatic and politically correct and all that kind of stuff? Just let me know in the comment section. Do you want me to keep it 100? You can throw up the 100 symbol, or you can throw up a 1 if you want me to keep it 100. Or do you want me to be politically correct? Put up a 2 if you want me to be politically correct. So I'll just wait a couple of minutes. I know it's just a couple of people in here. It is Saturday morning, but Somebody said 95, 90 to 95. Diplomatic, but 100. Some people are saying 100. It looks like the 100s are winning out, man. It seems like people want me to keep it 100. So I'll let a couple of more people vote before I call it. Yeah, and that's my natural instinct anyway, to keep it 100. But I don't want to like burn bridges and just go all the way off the off the rails, man. You know, usually I say that kind of stuff on my I Declare War channel. So I'm just going to be honest. You know, I'm going to be frank, but I'm not going to be too disrespectful. It's going to be a little bit disrespectful. So if you're not in for that, I'm just warning you ahead of time. This is going to be a little bit disrespectful. But before I get to the disrespectful stuff, I just want to raise a couple of points about this whole particular process, you know, about the whole debate and everything, and just share my thoughts about it. You know, first of all, before the debate even got started, you know, I sent an email to Nylah Says, just saying that I'm not with any of that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to be in a forum where it's just all willy-nilly and there's disrespect and all that kind of stuff. I basically said I want to have a civilized debate. You know, I want something that's structured with time limits and all that kind of stuff, with, you know, without interruption and disrespect, without insults and stuff like that. And I had to give her props for the most part, making it structured in that kind of way. You know, she had the time set, you know, she timed us. We both had opening remarks for like 15 minutes each, and she timed those remarks. She gave us time to respond to each other. So for 95 to 99% of the debate, it was a civilized and structured debate. You know, it was very structured. And I like that because that gives people an opportunity to express themselves and to deal with the actual points and stuff like that. Now, I'll get into some little cheap shots that were taken here and there. But for the most part, it was a civilized, intelligent discussion. And I have to give her props for doing that. You know, even though I know she was very disrespectful when I went into her chat room and I made the initial comments that sparked this whole debate to begin with. But she was, you know, fair in terms of the debate. You know, she was fair. She had it structured and everything. Fair to a degree. And I'll get into that later. You know, there's a couple of other things that I have to highlight. But for the most part, I was satisfied with the way she handled the moderating. So I got to give her props for that. You know, I got to give her respect for that. Now, just in terms of like how this debate went, you know, I think that any objective person that listened to that debate knows that, you know, I think that I won the debate hands down. You know, I think that it was clear that I had solid, strong arguments that were not rebutted in any kind of substantial type of way. Like, this guy didn't have any really strong counter arguments to what I was saying. And, you know, for those of you who haven't seen it, you know, again, the link is in the description box. I encourage you all to check it out. You know, really, I think that this guy was in over his head. There were a lot of things that he didn't even know about. This guy didn't even really, I don't think this guy even knew who Kwame Nkrumah was, but yet he wants to have a debate about Pan-Africanism and what Africans have or have not done for African Americans. I'm sure this guy didn't know who Soko Toure was. He didn't know who Julius Nyerere was. And I was about to ask him, you know, do you even know who Kwame Nkrumah was, who Kwame Nkrumah is? Do you even know that? Do you even know any of these people that I'm mentioning? And I doubt that he does, because, you know, it's just obvious just based on his responses that this guy was in over his head. He doesn't know those things. He doesn't know really much about Pan-Africanism. You know, his statement about Pan-Africanism being dead when Garvey was deported, that's just straight up false. You know, there's so much evidence of, you know, active Pan-African movements following the deportation of Marcus Garvey from America. And the Pan-African movement is not confined to the United States. It's a worldwide movement, and they're a worldwide organization. So the fact that this guy would make that kind of statement just shows you how ignorant he is and how uninformed he is when you have these heads of state that I mentioned. people like a Julius Nyerere, people like a Kwame Ture, people like, a Kwame Nkrumah, people like a Soko Toure. These were heads of state. People like a Muammar Gaddafi. Nations that advocated Pan-Africanism. I mean, the fact that he was sated as dead, again, speaks to his ignorance and stuff. And then another thing that I have to highlight about this particular debate is the fact that this guy relied on a lot of straw man arguments. And Nylah says had a panel after the debate, you know, where she had, what's her name, Cynthia G on there and stuff like that. And Cynthia G was saying, well, he doesn't even know what a straw man argument is. I mean, she doesn't know what she's talking about. You know, obviously, I don't even know if she watched the whole debate or not, but anybody watching that debate would understand that there were straw man arguments raised, and they were raised by Taz. He made a lot of straw man arguments. And I'm going to, first of all, show you all the definition of straw man arguments. And then I'm just going to cite like 3 examples of straw man arguments that this guy raised. So if you can bear with me a second, I will share my screen. Okay, so here's the definition of straw man argument. As you can see, this is Wikipedia. It says a straw man is a form of argument and an informal fallacy based on giving the impression of refuting an opponent's argument while actually refuting an argument that was not presented by that opponent. Again, you are refuting an argument that was not presented by that opponent. One who engages in this fallacy is said to be attacking a straw man. All right, so let me stop sharing my screen and let me get into a couple of examples of this guy Taz engaging in straw man arguments. Let me just get up to the chat, and I will go to the chat and respond to people. And I see that Taz is in the chat room. I mean, he's immature. You got these emojis all in the chat room. I mean, it's silly. But anyway, man, let's get into some examples of this guy making straw man arguments. You know, the biggest straw man argument that he made, and a lot of these ADOS people constantly make, is this argument that somehow Pan-Africanists are calling for reparations for immigrants from white Americans. Nowhere during that discussion did I make that point. But yet, you know, that's a point that constantly comes up from these ADOS people, is a point that he raised, you know, talking about reparations, you know, suggesting that somehow I'm advocating that white America give reparations to immigrants to America. Nowhere did I say that in my presentation. Nowhere does any Pan-Africanist that I know of that has been speaking in opposition to this ADOS movement, none of them have said that immigrants should get reparations from the United States of America. So that's one example of a straw man argument that was raised. Another straw man argument that he raised was this whole thing about saying that immigrants are not coming here to fight for us. You know, no one said that the reason why immigrants come to America is to fight for African Americans. That was never an assertion that I made. Never. I don't think anybody's made that assertion that that's the reason why immigrants have come to America. So again, that's another straw man argument. And it's like you prop up an argument that someone has not even made, and then you refute that argument to make it seem like you're winning some kind of ground in a debate when you're not winning the ground. You're arguing against a position that wasn't even made. Another example of that was this whole back to Africa thing, basically saying, well, you're for Pan-Africanism, why don't you just go back to America, you know, back to Africa, and all this stuff about America being the home of the free and brave and all that kind of stuff. No one said anything about going back to Africa. That's, again, as I pointed out during the debate, the whole thing about going back to Africa is not necessarily a requirement in Pan-Africanism. You know, of course, there are some Pan-Africanists that do believe in going back to Africa, but that was not an argument that I made during the debate. And many Pan-Africanists don't believe that there should be some mass exodus to Africa. So I think that that was another example of, a straw man argument. And also it's a deflection. You know, it's a way to deflect and to distract people from the core issues at play here. Now, another thing that I wanted to point out was the fact that this guy actually was undermining his own points. You know, in his own arguments, he was undermining himself, undercutting himself. You know, for instance, this guy was talking about how immigrants cannot represent us. But then in the same breath, the guy was talking about what Marcus Garvey accomplished. You know, and everybody knows that Marcus Garvey was an immigrant from Jamaica. Despite being an immigrant from Jamaica, he built the largest Black organization in American history. And, you know, this guy Taz was boasting about how Marcus Garvey was able to organize all these people and gather, 15, I think he said 15,000 or whatever number of people, whatever. So while he's talking about immigrants not being able to represent us, he's praising the immigrant that did represent us, even though he tried to backtrack and, try to undermine that point as well. But the fact of the matter is he praised on Marcus Garvey while trying to say immigrants can't represent us. And really, I think that argument that immigrants can't represent us is nonsense, given the fact that there have been so many Black immigrants who have been strong advocates for African Americans. You know, people like Marcus Garvey, people like Kwame Ture, who was originally known as Stokely Carmichael. Even somebody like a Malcolm X, his mother was from the islands, from one of those islands or whatever. So even he had immigrant blood in his veins. So that's one thing. And then you got people like Harriet Belafonte and plenty of other people from the islands and people from Africa who have contributed to our struggle. And I mentioned Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah worked with Black organizations, worked with people like W.E.B. Du Bois, was concerned about the plight of African Americans. And then another thing, he undermined his point about how Africans can't do anything to help African Americans, while at the same time citing a UN finding saying that there should be reparations, not realizing that it was Africans that participated in that fact-finding mission, that participated in calling for that resolution. Africans from Jamaica, Africans from the continent participated in that. And that is a way of helping African Americans. And as I have cited before in my prior video on Pan-Africanism, I talked about how during this debate, I cited examples like about Africans protesting in support of Black Lives Matter. You have the example of an African bank, for instance, giving millions of dollars to a Black American bank to sustain that bank, a bank in Chicago. And then I cited the example of Muammar Gaddafi giving millions of dollars to the Nation of Islam, practical examples of Africans helping out African Americans. And then, another point that I have to raise is this, that's the point about how these people, these ADOS people, constantly try to disconnect themselves from the founders of the movement. Everybody knows that it was Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore who founded this movement. Regardless of what these people are saying, they are the ones that coined the phrase American descendants of slaves. They're the ones that laid the blueprint for that whole ideology. An ideology that's anti-Pan-Africanism, an ideology that's pro-American, an ideology that's anti-Black immigrant. That's an ideology propagated by them and created by them. And when you cite examples of this, these people try to duck and dodge from it. They try to disconnect themselves from the very people that they got their slogans from, that they got their name from. And I just think that that just shows how disingenuous they are. And I think that also it shows that some of these people don't even know what they're following. They're jumping on some bandwagon without even knowing who founded it or what all the key components of that particular position is. I mean, how are you going to be in a debate defending ADOS, but you want to distance yourself from the founders of ADOS? And if you go to Yvette Carnell's and those videos, they will let you know that they are the ones that founded the movement. And then you got some people that are so uninformed that they say, well, I can be a Pan-Africanist and I can be down with ADOS. I can call myself an African and be down with ADOS. When in fact, the ADOS movement has negated African identity. You know, the only thing that they recognize that we come from Africa, but other than that, they don't acknowledge any connection to Africa. In fact, Yvette Carnell said that we have no connection to Africa. That's what she said out of her own mouth. But yet you have these people just trying to disconnect from the people that founded the movement. That's like me trying to be a socialist or a communist, and then I'm trying to disconnect from Marx and Lenin and, you know, the founders of that ideology. Or me claiming to be a nationalist, but I want to disconnect from a Marcus Garvey or a Martin Delany or even the Nation of Islam. That's what that's like, and that's what these people are doing. They are trying to disconnect themselves from the very founders of that movement. And that's something that I noticed. Like anytime you get them in a corner and you point out, you know, just how weak Yvette Carnell's and them's ideology is, they want to say, well, I'm not associated with Yvette Carnell. This is not about Yvette Carnell, when in fact it has everything to do with Yvette Carnell and Antonio Speaks, because they founded the movement. So that's one thing. And then with respect to this whole thing in terms of the moderating and stuff like that, as I said before, I think that Nylah says did a good job overall moderating the discussion. But I also noticed that she didn't call foul on that guy Taz, because he would take these subtle little shots and disses, but she didn't, you know, check him on that. You know, I made one comment and she's trying to check me on something. It wasn't even no personal attack or anything like that. But in that debate, she didn't check this guy on anything that he was saying. You know, the way he was dissing me, basically saying, well, I'm not comprehending and all this and that. The way he was like, you know, basically saying nigger this and nigger that, not just using the N word, but using it in a dissing kind of way towards me. You know, she didn't check him on that. But that's to be expected. I mean, I knew I was going into a biased type of environment. So that's one thing that I had to point out. And, you know, I could have gotten all juvenile and just responded to some of the things and got back, you know, threw some subtle disses at him. But then it would have degenerated into just some shouting match. And I really wanted to have the dialogue, and I'm glad that we were able to have that dialogue. So that's one criticism that I have about this whole debate. And I will get to your comments in a second. The other thing that I had a problem with is the fact that she had these people that she said were judges, you know, these so-called judges. And to me, it was like a kangaroo court. I mean, where you got these biased ass people that are already Taz fans, you know, these biased ass people that already have embraced this ADOS ideology, these biased ass people that are not objective at all, who aren't analyzing the actual arguments, who are just going off of emotion, who are just rooting for their homie and stuff like that. To me, I think that was a farce. I think it was a joke to pretend like there was some real judging taking place during that debate. Because if you listen to that debate, you can see that this guy, I mean, this guy literally sounded like the guy from, I mean, almost like sounded like that guy from In Living Color. You know, that prisoner that has the kufi on, who's babbling nonsense, thinking he's all deep and profound. That's how this guy literally sounded. And the fact that you would have these judges be unanimous, I mean, tells me just how much of a farce and how much of a joke that so-called panel was. A complete joke. And I mean, you can look in the comment section, you could just see how juvenile this guy Taz is. You know, I'm keeping his comments up here because all you see are these silly laughing emojis, man. It's like these people operate off of emotion. I mean, that's an effeminate trait. I mean, this guy's throwing up all these emojis and stuff like that. I just find it to be hilarious, man. And another thing that I found is that even though like he was taking notes and he called himself responding, he didn't really solidly rebut any of the points that I was making. So that court of judges was a complete farce, a complete joke. It's like a kangaroo court, you know, like in a dictatorship or whatever, they pretend like there's some, you know, justice taking place or some actual judging taking place, when in fact everything's preordained and pre-decided and stuff like that. That's how that farce of a panel of judges appeared to me. Nobody can listen to that debate and say, nobody that's rational and objective can listen to that debate and say that this guy won anything. They can say he was emotional. They could say he was assertive. They could say he was aggressive, but they can't say that the guy won any kind of debate at all. At all, man. So another thing that I want to address is, you know, a comment that Cynthia G made, another comment that she made that really is like outside of what we're debating and stuff like that. You know, she referred to me as a troll, mentioned the fact that I had some videos up, you know, criticizing her. And she said something about like how if I'm about Black unity, why do I have videos criticizing people like her? And I just want to take time to respond to that. First of all, I'm not a troll. Like a troll is somebody that their only intent is to rile people up, to disturb and disrupt things and stuff like that, to get an emotional reaction from people. I'm not a troll at all. I mean, that's a ridiculous assertion. You know, I produce content. You know, I produce original content where I express my views about various issues. I don't just sit around attacking people and trolling people. Now, I have done videos that are critical of positions that she makes, just like she has done videos critical of positions that many other people have taken, whether they're celebrities or whatever. And arguing and debating somebody's ideas is not trolling. That's expressing an opinion. And as far as Black unity is concerned, I support Black unity, obviously. But my support for Black unity doesn't make me a fool. My support for Black unity doesn't render me silent in the face of hypocrisy, in the face of scamming and scheming and tricking people. It doesn't render me silent in that case. I'm going to call out these charlatans on here every chance I get. These fakers that want to preach to you about beta males and this and that while they're laying down with somebody that can be argued to be a beta male. I'm going to call it out every time. I'm going to call out somebody that talks about social responsibility and this and that, and talks about how men are out here procreating and not taking care of their kids or having kids and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And then she's in a situation where she's pregnant by some guy she met a couple of months ago, or got pregnant by some person that has like multiple baby mothers, somebody that regularly rails against dysfunction in the community, but she's participating in dysfunction. She's engaging in dysfunction, you know, throwing stones in a glass house. I'm going to call that stuff out every time. I'm going to call out somebody that's talking about white supremacy this and white supremacy that and evil albinoids this and that while she's laying up while she's hugged up with these damn people that she calls evil albinoids. Photo after photo, her best friends are evil albinoids, as she calls them. I'm going to call out that hypocrisy every time, man. I'm going to call out the people that scam and hustle our people out of money in the name of Black power and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to call them out every time, and I make no apologies for doing so. Just like I'm going to call out those people that shuck and jive and coon in our community and work against our community. I'm going to call them out every time. Being pro-Black and being for Black unity doesn't make you a damn fool. It doesn't mean that you're going to collaborate with people that are hustling your community and tricking your community, and even those people who are directly attacking your community. Only a fool would sit back and do that. Only a fool would talk about being unified with a Clarence Thomas or somebody like that. Somebody that's using their power to undermine the Black community. And that reminds me, I will be doing a video on my I Declare War channel about Clarence Thomas and his recent statements in the Supreme Court. I will be doing that Hopefully I'll be able to do that this morning. I may not be able to do it this morning because I have somewhere I have to go. But yeah, I'm gonna call these people out every time, man. So miss me with that, black unity stuff, so that I could be silent. I'm gonna call out somebody that profess to be about black pride, but yet they running around with a European hair on their head or some Asian hair on their head. While they're complaining about Asians doing the black community wrong, but yet they got Asian hair over covering their African hair. Yet they're saying these derogatory things about slave hair and this and that. But yet they want us to believe that they're about black power. I'm gonna call that shit out every time, whether these people like it or not. And if you think that makes me a troll, then oh well, who gives a damn? But people can look at my channel and see it for themselves, and they can know clearly that this is not no troll channel. And there's a couple of other points that I wanted to respond to that Taz made during the debate that I really didn't get a chance to respond to during the actual debate because there's so much going on and so many points being raised. The first point I need to respond to right now is this whole thing about immigrants not having the same experience as African Americans. Now, it may be true that the immigrant in his country or her country, in that country, their experience is different from ours. For instance, you're in an all-black country where you're not living under the thumb of some white man, regulating things and discriminating against you. So obviously your experience is different when you're in your homeland, whether that's Jamaica or some country in Africa. But when you come to America, when the black immigrant comes to America, his experience is not much different from the black man's experience, the African-American experience. Those police don't make no distinction between the immigrant and the so-called American descendant of slaves when they encounter a black person. They don't say, hold up, you're an immigrant? Okay, let me give you a pass. That's not how they operate. We saw what happened to Botham John, a brother sitting in his own apartment, a brother from the island sitting in his own apartment, has this cop just run up in there and shoot and kill that brother. We saw what happened to Amadou Diallo in New York, where the police shot at him like 40-something times, hitting him multiple times, killing him. We saw that happen in New York. We saw what happened to Abner Louima. And the list goes on. Many black immigrants are treated the same when they come to America. They're subjected to the same police brutality. They're subjected to the same discrimination that African Americans face because these oppressors don't make the same distinctions that we make amongst each other. Here we are fighting with our immigrant brothers and sisters when the white man is not making those kind of distinctions. Here we are fighting with our brothers and sisters when that white man, that white cop that stops you and shoots you, he's not thinking, oh, is this an immigrant? Well, let me give him a pass. Oh, that's an American descendant of slaves. Let me just go in on him. They don't make those distinctions. So that's something that has to be made, a point that has to be made. I mean, again, Abner Louima had a plunger shoved up his rectum. The brother Botham Jean in his own apartment gunned down. The brother Amadou Diallo going to his own apartment gets gunned down. And the list goes on and on. And this stuff about these immigrants, I mean, so there's a similar experience once they come here. Once they come to America, the experience is similar. Another point that has to be made is, this whole ADOS thing is about division in many ways, because you got people even going back, checking people's resumes, basically saying, oh, you got an immigrant descendant in your family, you're not ADOS. So you got black people fighting each other over who's really black and this and that. And I think that's silly. I think that's ridiculous. And I think voting for somebody or not voting for somebody based on whether or not there's quote unquote American descendants of slaves, I think that's asinine and I think it's stupid. I think that you should vote for people based on their positions on the issues. So another point that he raised that I didn't get a chance to address is this. He said that African Americans have never been able to benefit from the Civil Rights Act and civil rights legislation, because immediately after civil rights was passed, they passed the Immigration Act. I mean, nothing can be further from the truth than that. I mean, that is such a ridiculous ass statement that I can't believe that anybody could take such a statement seriously. To say that we never benefited from civil rights. Do we still sit in the back of the bus? Do we still see signs that say no colors allowed? Do we still face a situation where we're told that no blacks can vote, where no blacks can go to participate in the a primary, the Democratic primaries or the Democratic conventions or any political conventions? Are we still in a situation where the Klan can come into your house and lynch you like what happened to Emmett Till? Are we still in that situation? Are we still drinking from colored fountains? Of course not. If we compare the numbers of black people that have higher education today compared to the rate during the Jim Crow era, there's no comparison. You have more educated people than ever before because of civil rights legislation. You have more black people that are into politics because of civil rights legislation. Before the passage of the Voting Rights Act, you had very few elected black officials. And today we have black people as U.S. senators, we have black governors, we have black congressmen, black mayors, black city council people. We have the largest number of black millionaires and billionaires than we've ever had before. But yet you got somebody actually making this ridiculous statement that we never benefited from civil rights legislation, when today we got the right to vote and we didn't have that right before. When today we can go to any business establishment that we want to. We don't have to rely on a green book to tell us what businesses we can go to and what businesses we can't go to. You know, despite the fact that there's a long way for us to go, let's not pretend that civil rights did nothing for us. Let's not pretend like that. So, you know, so that has to be pointed out. I mean, that's just a blatantly false statement. You know, this idea that the immigrants are preventing us from realizing civil rights. That's asinine, that's stupid. And that's the classic example of scapegoating. We should be about taking responsibility. We should be about trying to be as competitive as possible instead of whining about some other, other groups of people trying to compete. And sitting around here waiting on this white man to coddle you and to give you some kind of special type of treatment and stuff like that. You know, and that's something that I pointed out. It's about how these people have more faith in a damn white man than they have in their own African brothers and sisters, man. They got more faith that this same white man that enslaved you for hundreds of years, raped you, beat you, castrated you, lynched you, burned you. You got faith that this white man that did all that, the white man that Jim Crowed you, segregated you, humiliated you, you believe that same white man is going to give you some reparations. But yet you don't believe that African people can unite. And, that's something that I raised during the debate. And then another thing is how these people are just so backwards in their thinking, man. The fact that they would suggest that I'm the one that's the problem, that I'm trying to prevent Black people from getting reparations, that I'm the one that's causing the issue, somehow suggesting that I'm the one that's selling out because I'm speaking out against these people that want to divide African people. That's ridiculous. Because again, as I've said time and time again, I support reparations. Before this fad of ADOS came out, I wrote blogs in support of reparations. I've done videos in support of reparations. So don't get on here trying to say that I don't support reparations or I'm trying to prevent African Americans from getting reparations and I'm some kind of sellout or something. No, the people that are pushing against Black unity by, talking about how they're against Pan-Africanism, they're against, uniting with African people worldwide. Those are the people who are in fact doing the work of the damn white man. Back in the day, the white man had to assassinate black leaders, assassinate people like Patrice Lumumba, assassinate people like Muammar Gaddafi, assassinate people like Thomas Sankara, assassinate them and overthrow people. That's what they had to do. But nowadays, they don't have to do that because they got Negroes running around here attacking each other on their own. They got Negroes out here that want to divide and conquer white, the black community and black people worldwide on their own. So they don't even have to do any work because they got these loyal subjects that are willing to do the work for them. And these people had a nerve to talk about somebody selling out when these people are in fact serving as the damn pawns of white supremacy. So now, let me shout out the super chat that I got. Just bear with me 1 second. Shout out to Robert J. Thank you for your contribution. I truly appreciate it. Yeah, I'm going to get to your comments in a second. I see that Nylah says is in here. I'm going to get to what you have to say in a second. Yeah, I'm going to do that. But now let's get to the disrespectful part. Let's get to the disrespectful part, man. So, I asked the people at the beginning, and I'll ask them again right now, like, do they want me to get disrespectful? Do they not disrespectful to just keep it 100? And I've kept it 100. Somebody said, well, just keep it 100, but, basically be polite and all that kind of stuff. But most of the people said just keep it 100. And I'm like, why not keep it 100, man? Let me just go in. First of all, now that I got all the substantive stuff out of the way, first of all, it's really hard for me to take this guy Taz seriously, man. And I don't know why. When I saw that was who I was debating, I'm like, are you for real, man? This guy? I mean, he's in his car. First of all, he got a mouthful of gold teeth. He's in his car rolling up a blunt. You know what I'm saying? Rolling up a blunt and blazing it up on camera, man. Like I got a little glimpse of the very beginning. Like he has this blunt, he has the paper, licking the paper, putting the weed on the stuff and blazing up, man. This is who y'all have me debate, man. Some thug, some hood nigga, is barely literate, man. This is the person that they have me going against, man. And I just find it to be hilarious, man. But I maintained a straight face and I just went ahead forward with it and I engaged in the debate, man. And it's just like odd that like these are the types of Negroes that these women are dependent on, man. That these are the type of Negroes that they use as their attack dogs. They want to lecture people about, beta males and this and that. But here they are sitting up with a guy, from what I understand, is fresh out of jail, man. A guy with gold teeth, a guy that's smoking weed on camera, the typical thug, the typical hood, the stereotypical Negro. That's who they have me debating. That's the guy that's supposed to have broken me down intellectually. You can't be for real. And here we are. Like, and I noticed, like, I'm at work. I'm at work doing what people do to provide for their family and take care of their family as a man should do. And here these people are. Like it's a work, it's like the work time. You know what I'm saying? Where most people are at work. These people are here on YouTube all day, all day. These same guys that are supposed to be, a strong black man. Here he is during the middle of the day when people should be at work, chilling on YouTube doing a video. These people go on for hours and hours and hours. But I had to get that out, man. I just had to get that stuff out of my system. That's it with the negativity. But it just was on my mind as soon as I tuned in. Like I went back and I watched the playback a little bit and I was like, this guy is actually on camera. This guy got a mouthful of gold teeth. This guy is rolling up a blunt on camera, and this is the guy I'm supposed to be debating. This is the guy that I'm supposed to be intimidated by. This is the guy that they say defeated me, that this sham little kangaroo court says defeated me in a debate. Are you for real? A guy who probably doesn't even know who half of those people were that I mentioned, but he's supposed to be some intellect or something. A guy that comes into my chat room, and instead of like putting anything intelligent in the chat room, he's throwing up all these ridiculous emojis and stuff. He's throwing up all these little laughing emojis, man. That's the guy that's supposed to be all this and all that. And then, like, another thing I have to address, I'm going into your comments in a second, man. I'm gonna have to get ready in a second. I'm gonna have to go, but I'm gonna try to go through as many of your comments as possible. But yeah, man, it's just crazy, man. That's one thing, man. You know, this is the person that's supposed to be defeating me in a battle, man, in a debate. And you know, again, like I'm willing to debate anybody. And that's one thing that I wanted to talk about real quick before I go to your comments. It's just about like how this guy wanted to engage me in a back and forth. You know, he wanted to get into like a back and forth without the time limits and stuff like that, without the pauses, because he knows that that's the kind of environment that he would probably prevail in, where you don't get points based on what kind of stuff you're saying or what kind of arguments you make. It's all about talking over people, you know, doing all that rah-rah stuff, you know, talking over people and being disrespectful. And I'm like, to hell with that. I'm not participating in that stuff. So yeah, it's not about ducking this guy or anything like that. I just refuse to participate in any kind of uncivilized back and forth, you know, where nobody's going to hear the points being raised, where it's going to all be about just the drama of the whole thing. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Let me see what y'all are saying. Yeah, so people said that they're also, shout out to Lashid for You, shout out to Ryan James. So Lashid for You talked about how I can understand certain individuals not being cool with you, but there was a general disdain for me. And I wasn't reading the chat room, but from what I understand, there was a lot of people taking shots and being disrespectful and all that kind of stuff. I hardly ever pay attention to the chat room when I'm doing those live debates with people and stuff like that. So I hear what you're saying. So Ministers Jap said this. He said, stop having man conversations on bitches platforms. You know, like, I'm not with that whole manosphere thing, you know, the disrespect for women and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, this idea that a man can't be on a woman's platform and stuff like that. But I will say this, like, the one thing I will say is this, you know, originally I just wanted to debate Nylah Says. You know, she's the one that was taking shots when I got into her comment section, just expressing my opposition to ADOS. She's the one that was taking shots. She was the one being disrespectful. So I was like, I want to debate you. But she got her attack dog to come at me. And, you know, some people made a big deal about me wanting to debate a woman. You know, a woman can share her views or argue her views just like anybody else. I mean, I don't make those distinctions when it comes to people. You know, I don't have any problem debating a woman, but I'm not going to argue with a woman. I would rather just debate about the issues. But I don't take, you know, I don't have any problem going on a woman's platform to debate. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's see. And, you know, I reject like using that. I reject just calling women bitches and all that kind of stuff. I mean, why do we have to be disrespectful towards women? You know, I understand that people may have relationship issues or have issues with how some women deal in relationships and all that kind of stuff, but we don't have to disrespect women as a group and just refer to them as bitches and stuff like that. That's not the kind of language I support over here. So let's see. Shout out to Psycho. Shout out to Psycho, even though he was on that panel of judges and stuff like that, no disrespect to him. You know, I've been rocking with Psycho for a minute, But Psycho knows good and damn well that he was already pro ADOS on that panel. From what I think he was one of the judges on that panel. He's already in the ADOS camp. So let's not pretend like that was some kind of fair, objective panel at all, man. And I just asked the people, you know, a lot of people came to my channel. Like I did a video basically challenging Nylah Says to a debate. People came to that video and they said, oh yeah, I checked out the debate. You did a great job on that debate and all that kind of stuff. So they take a different position than those biased judges that were over there on her her platform supposedly judging something. I mean, Psycho would admit it himself. I mean, we had a debate. I think it was like a couple of weeks ago about this ADOS thing. He's in the ADOS camp. How can he judge anything fairly and stuff? So let's go on. Yeah, and I'll even shout out Nylah Says again, you know, much respect for following through and like actually setting up the debate and having it civilized for the most part and having a structure to it. You know, I still have to respect that. So someone said ADOS is a xenophobic cult. Yes, it is xenophobic. It is anti-immigrant. And I cited example after example of how anti-immigrant that movement is. And that brings me back to that point about how this guy, Taz, undermined his own points. Because he said, well, ADOS is not anti-immigrant. Then he proceeded to talk about how African immigrants are docile. And he proceeded to say other negative things about immigrants. I mean, these people talk out of both sides of their mouths. And it's just crazy, man. And it's crazy that somebody can't see that. But anyways, you know, even though I disagree with Minister Jap, shout out to him for tuning in. I'm not going to repeat that. All right. Yeah, I don't know what Suge, the king of content, was saying, but I see that somebody took him out. So somebody said, well, why did I bring up Cynthia G? I brought up Cynthia G because they did a video afterwards, like a recap of our debate, and she was one of the people on there, and she was talking about, you know, making comments about me. Making comments about me being a quote unquote troll and this and that and beta male, this and that. So that's the reason why I brought her name up. And I know some people are down with Cynthia G or whatever. And I get that, but I'm not going to bite my tongue. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to keep it 100 on here. So somebody said something about Yvette Carnell. I'm not going to go into that. Like, I'm not going to mention that. Like, I don't have any information confirming that, so I'm not going to even mention that in this video. Let's see. Yeah, so I already addressed that point that Minister Jap made. Yeah, I don't know what's going on between Nylah Says and that guy. Let's see. Somebody said I should talk about Candace Owens. Yeah, I have talked about her. I have several videos on my I Declare War channel about her. In fact, I did a video about that terror attack that took place in New Zealand, and I mentioned her name in that video. So you all could check that out. Yeah, so the guy, Taz, is delusional. He's actually saying, am I done talking about the debate that I lost? Only somebody that's very biased would say that you won that debate. Only somebody that's not objective, only somebody that's one of your fans or one of your homies or somebody that's already down with ADOS would say that you won that debate. And I really got to start getting ready, y'all. But I'm going to try to make it through most of these comments. Let's see. Yeah, so somebody said, well, they don't agree with me calling out Cynthia G for having a child. I don't even know all the details right now with somebody that has other children and stuff like that. The only reason why that becomes relevant is because this is a woman who constantly criticizes Black men and women for engaging in dysfunctional behavior. That's the only reason why it matters. You know, this is a woman that, you know, talks about men not being responsible, but yet she's going to, you know, and from those text messages or messages, it was as if this woman literally planned to have this guy's baby. I mean, from what I understand, a man that has multiple baby mothers. I think I think it's like 4 baby mothers or something crazy like that, 4 or 5. And she has the audacity to be lecturing somebody about some dysfunctional behavior, lecturing somebody about being dusty, when somebody could clearly argue that a man that has like multiple baby mothers and, you know, all these kids everywhere, they could say he's irresponsible. They could say he fits the idea of what a beta male is. You know, somebody could say these people on this panel that were you know, this guy that's, you know, with gold in his mouth and thugged all the way out and smoking weed on camera. Somebody could say that's a beta male. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's just about calling out hypocrisy, man. It'll be one thing if she wasn't on here trying to play holy and trying to lecture people about social responsibility and all this and that. Then that would be quite another thing. That would be, you know, that whole thing would be irrelevant. It wouldn't even come up for discussion. But I don't want to make this about her. I said enough about her. This ain't about her. The only reason why I brought her up is because she was taking some shots during that recap of our debate, the debate that I had with the guy Taz. All right, so let's see. So Lashid, for you, said I'm going to defend the weaves and wigs now. Man, we could go back and forth about that, man. But she said, even though I no longer wear them, I'm sorry, man. I just can't take people seriously. They're talking about Black pride and this and that, and then they refer to natural hair as slave hair and stuff like that. So Nylah says it's going back and forth with somebody. All right. All right, so let's see. So somebody said, why don't I ante up the debate and go against BGS and this other guy? I'm not familiar with their channel, so I don't even know what they're talking about. But if you can post a link to one of their videos where they address this issue, you know, again, like I said, like I did an open video where I challenged any of these people to a debate. And I do have to give, you know, at least give them props for debating me. I have to give Taz props for debating me. I have to give Psycho and Renee props for debating me on this issue of ADOS. Yeah, I'll debate any of these people, man. And then this guy, Crew, man, it's like this guy is so, I mean, he's so much of a fan on the low key. I mean, how many people get blocked and then they create multiple content so they could get on your videos and chime in and share their viewpoints about you, but yet they got so much negative stuff to say about you, man. It's like these folks are infatuated or something, man. And I got to talk about this Donald Trump thing real quick. You know, the reason why that becomes relevant, because that's a point that Nylah says was talking about in her recap of the debate. She kept saying, well, why are they deflecting talking about Donald Trump and this and that? You know, basically saying, why am I bringing up Donald Trump? The only reason why Donald Trump becomes relevant is because many of these people that profess to be all about ADOS are really low-key Donald Trump supporters, and they're doing what they can to help him get reelected. At the end of the day, that's what's happening. That's what's going on. Because you don't see these people all up in the face of the Republicans demanding reparations. I don't see these people doing video after video talking about what's Donald Trump's position on reparations. What's this and that GOP senator's position on reparations. All I see them doing is going after Democrats about reparations. But they're not going after these Republicans about reparations. They're not doing video after video asking about Donald Trump's position on reparations. In fact, you got this guy Taz, bringing up this point about how Donald Trump actually offered something to Black people, suggesting that Donald Trump was the only candidate that presented something for African Americans. And, you know, that's asinine and just outright false. I mean, we know that Bernie Sanders had programs that dealt with issues affecting African Americans. We know that even Hillary Clinton, as much as I oppose her, she had various policy positions dealing with African Americans. But yet you got this guy Taz suggesting that that Donald Trump was the only one that brought up issues affecting African Americans. He's actually going to bring that up as a talking point when we look at what Donald, and at the end of the day, what somebody talked about on the campaign trail is not as relevant as what they actually do when they got into office. And we saw what Donald Trump did when he got into office, went after affirmative action, shut up some voter fraud commission that was designed to suppress Black voters, underemphasized the need to deal with police brutality. That's what Donald Trump did, referred to Africa and Haiti as shithole countries. That's what your man Donald Trump did. His own attorney said that this man said that Black people are too stupid to vote for him. His own attorney said that only Black people can live this way. His own attorney said that Donald Trump said that look at any country run from a black person and it's basically a shithole country. That's what his own attorney said Donald Trump has said. But yet you got Negroes low-key tap dancing for Donald Trump. You got this Yvette Carnell actually doing a video where she's getting all moist because of some press conference Donald Trump did. And she got so hyped up, so excited, that she actually had the audacity to put on a Donald Trump hat. And when I get a chance, I will post a link to that video so you can see it for yourself. So this is relevant. It's relevant because Donald Trump is hostile to the interests of Black people. But you have these ADOS people, some of them, not all of them, but a significant number of them who are low-key Donald Trump supporters. And I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't pushing this issue of reparations to try to undercut Democratic candidates, to lower the Black voter turnout for those candidates, and also make other voters outside of the Black community go against them because of their statements on reparations, thereby making it possible for Donald Trump to win re-election, a man that is proven to be openly hostile to the interests of Black people. That's the reason why Donald Trump becomes relevant in this conversation. Not because somebody's trying to deflect or trying to change the subject. It's about like questioning the motives of these people that's behind this ADOS thing. And again, like, even though there are real Black people that support this ADOS movement, I would not be surprised if you don't have others outside of the Black community propping this movement up, you know, making it bigger than what it is. And the fact that you have a racist like an Ann Coulter giving this movement props tells you just how lost that movement is. Here you have a right-wing, racist-ass white woman giving props to ADOS. Anytime something like that happens, you need to question your movement. You need to reevaluate your movement. Because if it was truly revolutionary, if it was truly about empowering Black people, there would be no way in hell somebody like an Ann Coulter would endorse it. And so Psycho said the whole immigrant argument is a distraction from the real issue, which is reparations. Yeah, it is a distraction. It's a distraction on the part of the ADOS movement. You know, the fact that the ADOS movement constantly scapegoats immigrants and bashes immigrants, they are detracting from their issue that they claim to care about. They are detracting from that issue. They're the ones making these anti-immigrant statements. What does an immigrant have to do with your reparations? What does bashing immigrants have to do with reparations? Absolutely nothing. We should be trying to build allies among all Black people and just among the American populace, period, if we are serious about getting reparations. It is, in fact, a distraction, but I'm not the one bringing the distraction. It's the ADOS movement and their anti-immigrant statements that are causing the distraction. That's what's happening. Now, somebody said, no, they're not saying disrespectful things about immigrants. I mean, I hear this all the time, and I'm just like, are you people even watching Yvette Carnell when you say this kind of stuff? Are you listening to what she says? Are you listening to what these people have said? Are you listening? Because if you were listening, you can't say that they're not anti-immigrant. When you have Yvette Carnell saying things like this. And, you know, for those of you that need the reference point, go to her video entitled Pan-Africanism is Dead. She says this, she says, you know, she describes immigrants as taking advantage of us. She describes immigrants, Black immigrants, as complicit in white supremacy. She describes Black immigrants as docile. She talks about Black immigrants sharpening their knives, being pawns of white supremacy, trying to replace African Americans. She equated African and Black immigrants with the influx of crack cocaine, talking about the same person that gave you crack, the same president that gave you crack, gave you a surge in immigrants. Talked about how immigrants are basically playing a game on African Americans. Talking about immigrants taking the slots of African Americans. If that stuff is not anti-immigrant rhetoric, I don't know what is. And I don't understand how any rational person can listen to all those types of statements and reach the conclusion that that movement is not anti-immigrant. This kind of rhetoric causes a distraction. This is a distraction from the quest for reparations. When you got Black people fighting other Black people saying, well, this person can't have, this person is not a legitimate candidate because of, suggesting because of their immigrant heritage. Or this person can't speak on Black issues because of their immigrant heritage. All of that is a distraction. They are the ADOS movement and its anti-immigrant rhetoric. They are distracting from the real cause of reparations. The only thing that I have to give them credit for is creating a dialogue for reparations. But then again, there are plenty of other people who created a dialogue without undermining and scapegoating immigrants. People like Ta-Nehisi Coates, when he wrote his powerful article entitled The Case for Reparations, he generated a discussion. For years, you had John Conyers pushing HR 40. Instead of bashing immigrants, scapegoating immigrants, focusing on immigrants, what people need to be doing is pushing HR 40. If you're really about that life, if you're really about getting something done in terms of reparations, why aren't you on here advocating and pushing for HR 40? Not just to Democrats, but to every single candidate, to both political parties. Why aren't you doing that if you're for real? So yeah, I mean, this whole thing about immigrants, it is a distraction, but that distraction is being created by the ADOS movement itself. That's who's creating the distraction. And let's quit pretending like the movement is not anti-immigrant when every other word that comes out of their mouth is scapegoating immigrants, blaming immigrants for African-American failures and shortcomings. That's the definition of scapegoating. Again, I want to shout out to Brother Robert J. for his contribution. I truly appreciate it. Yeah, and I just find it so odd that, man, like all of their energy, like they direct most of their energy and their hostility towards these Black immigrants. But they don't go at the white man like that. But they want to go all the way in on immigrants. And that's misdirection, man. That's stupid to me. All right. I mean, this psycho is saying, well, Black Americans are shamed for self-identifying, but other Blacks are praised for it. I mean, I think I mean, again, that's like a straw man argument because nobody is saying that we shouldn't self-identify. When did I say that we shouldn't self-identify? Point to any clip of me saying we shouldn't self-identify. When I'm doing these videos, I call us African Americans. That is a form of self-identification. So how could somebody even form their mouth to suggest that I'm saying that we shouldn't self-identify? Again, that's another example of a red herring. There's nothing wrong with us identifying who we are, saying that we are African Americans. But there is a problem when you have all these scapegoating type of statements against immigrants, when you blame immigrants for your situation, when you bash immigrants, calling them docile, calling them pawns of white supremacy, saying they're complicit in white supremacy, saying that they're here to replace us and they're taking our slots and they're here to sharpen their knives. That's what I have a problem with. I don't have any problem with us calling ourselves African American or, you know, recognizing ourselves as a distinct group. I don't have any problem with that. So that's not the position that I'm advancing at all. But again, you know, I do have a problem with the terminology that the ADOS movement uses, and I've explained it before. They call themselves, instead of calling themselves African Americans, where you're identifying with your African heritage and your American heritage, they change that to American descendants of slaves, meaning they have taken out the Africa, they have put America first, and they have identified themselves primarily with being a damn slave. And they have cut off their ties to the continent. Don't say that I'm not just saying this. This is something that Yvette Carnell said, talking about we have no connection to Africa. That's what she said out of her own mouth. And for my rebuttal to that, check out my video on Pan-Africanism. So this is not about saying that Black people can't, in America, or Black Americans can't identify themselves. That's not a real argument against anything that I'm saying here, because I never said that. Let's see. And this is going to be longer than let's see. Yeah, I'm going to have to get ready. All right. Shout out to True Royal family. Thanks for tuning in. Now, a lot of people keep asking me if I'm ADOS, you know, because I'm making these arguments. You know, am I basically saying, am I an African American, quote unquote, descendants of slaves? And I'm going to answer this for the, you know, the 100th time. I am an African American. I'm a quote unquote descendant of people who were enslaved in this country. we have our records. My family gathered their written records, and we traced our ancestors who were enslaved in this country. So yes, I mean, that's the thing. People want to go at you personally. They want to say, well, what is he about personally? What's his background? Instead of saying, let's break down what he's talking about. They want to go to this whole thing about what's his background and stuff. Yes, I am a descendant of Africans who were enslaved in this country. And there's a huge difference between that terminology and that American descendants of slaves terminology. All right, so let's keep going. Yeah, yeah, Lashid is right about this. She said it seemed that all that I was saying was disregarded. And I was called niggas and motherfuckers from jump. Yeah, I mean, exactly, man. But there was no calling foul or none of that stuff. There was no calling foul on any of that stuff. But yet I said one word, and here Nylah says was to say, hold up and this and that, even though I wasn't even being disrespectful. But it is what it is, man. I mean, what do you expect from some guy that's sitting in his car with gold teeth in his mouth, speaking in, speaking the way he talks, man, with and smoking, rolling weed and all that kind of stuff. Somebody fresh out of jail. I mean, what more can you expect from them? You expect them to use that kind of terminology. But anyway, man, let me just try to chill. I'm gonna try to. Somebody said have the live stream on your channel. Yeah, I would debate people on my channel, man. I'll debate anybody on my channel. But I like the idea of having like a being on somebody else's channel, because that way I don't have to moderate and participate in the debate. Like, I would rather be able to just focus on the debate, man, instead of dealing with like trying to moderate and be the moderator and a participant in the debate. It's more difficult that way. But I'm willing to debate people on my channel as well. Somebody said, I don't agree with you at all about reparations. I'm not sure what you're saying, because I support reparations. I mean, the only way somebody could say that is if they're against reparations. All right, I may not have time to get to all your comments. Yeah, I don't know. Like somebody said, Cynthia G is turning into a black conservative too. Like, I don't know enough. I haven't been watching her content. And I just watch her content from time to time. Like, if there's some real controversial subject, I'll check her out. But I don't have time for like some hour. In general, like, I don't do the long live stream things. Like, I'll dip in for a hot second, but I don't have like hours to waste watching anybody. I mean, no matter how much I like them, I can't watch nothing that's going on for hours and hours. And so I rarely watch her stuff recently, especially like after this whole thing came out with her and this hypocrisy, blatant hypocrisy, man. I just can't rock with her. So I'm not familiar with like her turning conservative, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, a lot of these people that talk all this stuff are really political conservatives, man. These people that are telling you not to vote. I mean, she's one of these people that was on here telling black people they don't need to vote and all that kind of stuff. These people, whether they know it or not, are just helping conservatives like a Donald Trump get reelected. They helped him literally get elected. You had that fool, Tariq Nasheed, actually telling people not to vote. But yet he wants to be some advisor on political matters, man. All right, so let's see what people are saying. So somebody said, Robert J asked, where's the debate? I post a link in the description box. So after this video uploads, you'll be able to just click the link and hear the debate for yourself. It's at the very beginning. It's like the first couple of hours of that live stream. Yeah, I could get into a whole long debate with Lashid about the civil rights movement and the so-called push for integration. We could have a long debate about that. I won't touch on that right now. Yeah, shout out to Nikki Joints. Yeah, hit that like button, get the likes up, because I know them haters are gonna come through and put the likes down. I know that's how it's gonna go. Jonathan Mason said, "Keep it Detroit." Yeah, that's why I had a D up. That's where I'm originally from. If y'all don't know. Um, yeah, I'm glad my moderators are taking care of the business, man. Getting rid of the trolls. Yeah. So somebody said the other truth is that nobody wants to say, especially black conservative, is that white men hate black men, period. Anytime the police are shooting innocent black men, you are hated. Yeah, and they don't make black men, period. So it's not black descendants of slaves um, alone, it's black men, period. Yeah, some comments I'm just going to ignore, man. Like your boy Crew, one of my greatest fans up in here. That Negro loves me, man. That's why he watches my stuff and does multiple videos, play by play, talking about me. Man, it's just a trip, man. Yeah, I just find it hilarious, man. Like I'm at work, putting in work, listening to the YouTube in the background. I'm like, wow, man, it's the middle of the workday, and you got these Negroes on YouTube all day, man. And you got this woman who calls people dusty beta males chilling with these guys. Man, it's just crazy, man. I'm just like, man, how are they taking this dude seriously, man? A dude that's rolling up. I mean, it's one thing if you want to smoke weed, that's your business. But you on camera rolling up. And then that's another thing I got to crack on him for, man. Your man was on an Obama phone. This dude is on a damn Obama phone like the whole time, man. It was like choppy and stuff like that. And then the other day, yesterday, I was watching a recap and he was still on that damn Obama phone. It was all choppy and stuff like that. This is the man that these people had so much faith in and said he's so great. He did a great job in this debate. This is the clown that y'all are praising like this. This is the guy I was supposed to be all shook by. People were like, "You don't know what you're in for to debate this guy, Taz. You got to look out." I'm like, "Come on, man, cut it out." Yeah, I just can't take that stuff seriously, man. I know people smoke and that's their business, but I'm like, damn, why are you gonna get on camera? I mean, get on camera smoking major pounds of weed. You know what I'm saying? That stuff ain't legal everywhere yet. And then you an ex-felon from what people are saying, man. This dude sound like one of these guys in the barber shop, like one of these street corner guys. And that's the guy I'm supposed to be debating, man. That's the guy that these women hold in such high esteem. Yeah, I'm not tripping on weed. Like I see Lashid saying, don't trip over weed and all that kind of stuff, man. But I'm just saying, man, it's rolling up on camera, man. Come on, man. You got to do better than that. For the whole damn world to see. Come on, son. All right, man. All right, I think Oh, there's some more comments. Man, I really got to get ready. All right. I only got a couple of more. I'm going to give it 7 more minutes, then I'm going to have to roll out. So John Doe basically brought up the fact that Ann Coulter suggested that the name for the movement be slightly changed. Like he's suggesting that to make it some kind of point that she was somehow against ADOS. When she's the one like saying, I support ADOS. Like I support you guys. And they got like some of their talking points directly from her because she was the one saying is that civil rights is just for African Americans, not for these immigrants. And they just ran with that stuff, and they were all hyped up, all aroused because this white racist ass woman gave their movement props. And you can see it in the tweets that they had back and forth with her and stuff, man. Here you have a racist ass white person who said all kinds of crazy things vouching for your movement. That should cause you to some pause, man. That should cause you to say, hold up, why is this racist woman supporting this? But these people are so foolish, they think that's some kind of compliment or something. Somebody said Taz sold drugs to his own race of people. He cusses people out all day long and surrounds himself with no real alpha man. But people keep taking his low IQ ass seriously. I couldn't have said it better myself. Oh, man. Man, I don't even have to add anything to that. This nigga, I mean, this guy was acting like, you know, some hood guy, man, you know, like some street corner goon and stuff like that. And this is their idea of what a real black man is supposed to be, man. And it's no wonder they find themselves in this type of situation, man. I'm just like, wow, man. This the guy that's supposed to be all this and all that, man. I'm just like, wow. Somebody said he didn't have the nuts to go into the suburbs and sell drugs to the white man or the Asian man, but felt more comfortable selling that poison to his own race. And this person said, F that MF. I'm trying not to use so much foul language. I'm trying. Somebody said I'm gonna show the comment. Man, I really need to be going. What y'all got me all fired up. All right. Somebody said I'm a whitewashed boule traitor. How is advocating for unity for African people being a traitor? In what universe is that being a traitor? In what universe is a united and powerful Africa advocating for that? In what universe is that being a quote unquote traitor? You have to be out of your damn mind to think that that makes me a traitor. A traitor is somebody that's dividing and conquering black people, having, you know, doing the bidding of the damn white man by dividing up themselves and, you know, attacking their fellow black people in the name of begging for a check from Mr. Charlie. That's what a traitor looks like. So you can miss me with that nonsense. And I'll deal with this whole thing about civil rights is only for ADOS. That is so asinine. It's so ridiculous. I mean, anybody that looks at any Supreme Court decision dealing with the equal protection clause. That's not limited to just Black people. Even the languages, even though like some of these amendments to the Constitution were created to make African Americans full citizens in this country, the fact of the matter is they affect all people. The right to vote affects all citizens. The right to be free from discrimination affects all citizens. The Equal Protection Clause affects people of different races and ethnicities and religions and even genders. It's not exclusively for African Americans. I mean, anybody that studies the history of that civil rights legislation and, you know, those civil rights amendments, you know, they understand this. They understand that it has broader implication and broader impacts that go beyond just African Americans. And if you really expect this white society to create a special lane for you, where you have special privileges, you can hold your breath until you die, because that's not going to ever happen. That's not going to happen. No matter how much, you know, Yvette Carnell and them put that up on their website and this and that, that's not going to happen. All right. Yeah, I got one more minute, then I really have to go. Yeah, civil rights did start, like I said before, like those civil rights amendments were added to make African American citizens. That is the origin of them. But their impact extends beyond African Americans. Their use extends beyond African Americans. All somebody has to do is go to all those Supreme Court decisions and stuff. And civil rights legislation, a lot of it was passed to deal directly with African Americans being discriminated against, but it has a broader impact, like the Fair Housing Act. That doesn't just bar discrimination against African Americans, it bars racial discrimination in housing. You know, the Voting Rights Act passed to help African Americans, but it also affects anybody. It affects all people. It prevents people from denying people the right to vote based on their race, whether they're African American or of some other race. So somebody said Cynthia G's talking about me now. I don't know what's going on, because I'm on my stuff and not on somebody else's stuff. Yeah, so I'm not going to have time to go through all the rest of the comments, but I want to thank you all for tuning in. I just wanted to get on here and just share my views about that debate, to do a little recap of it. For those of you who haven't seen it, again, the link will be in the description box. And hey, Nylah Sales and them should be you know, happy, because I'm giving them free promotion now. I'm giving that guy Taz free promotion right now. And I see somebody in here is throwing insults and stuff like that. And I'm just going to erase them from my channel. I mean, they think things like that. Like, no insult that you have can hurt me. You know what I'm saying? You know, I've heard them all. Like, I've heard all the insults, you know. So none of that stuff phases me. But I'm not going to have you on my platform doing it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to have you in my house disrespecting me. But anyway, with that, I'm going to say peace and blessings to each and every one of you. Have a great weekend. Like the video, share the video, thumbs it up, hit that notification bell, so that you'll know when I go live over here. And also, I want you all to subscribe to my I Declare War channel. I'm back over there putting in that work. And hopefully later on tonight, I'll be able to do a video on Clarence Thomas and some ridiculous statements he made. Also, I'm probably going to do another video on Ben Carson as well over there. Those videos will either be tonight or they will be first thing in the morning. So you all look out for that. Peace and blessings to each and every one of you.